Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Chris. Welcome back to Why Wait. So today is going to be a pretty quick video. We find ourselves here in the middle of December. Not a lot of RVing going on, not a lot of people out there camping this time of year. Things have definitely slowed down a bit, but there was something I did want to address, and that's because I was getting ready to change out my Blu Technology filters right here. And I thought about it, and I've actually had this question a lot, but a lot of people ask me, when do you change out the filters? How often do you change out the filters? Or when do you know when it's time to change out the filters? And I realized after thinking about it that I think a lot of people are actually misinformed or don't really understand kind of the correct protocol for changing out your water filters in these RV filtration systems. So I just kind of wanted to touch base on what I do, how often I change them, why, and what the company recommends. So when I was actually up in Pennsylvania at the big Hershey RV show, I found the answer to this question myself from talking to the people at the Blu Technology booth. Now, I always assumed, like probably many of you do, that it just depends on your water usage. How much water are you using is how often you should probably change out these filters. So I, like many of you, always just assumed it was probably like, how much water are you using depends on how often you should change it out. I used to tell people, where there's three of us living in this RV, we have a washer machine, we full-time RV, so we change them out so often because, well, we use a lot more water than maybe some people who go out, 2-3 times a year to go camping. Well, that's not actually the case. That really kind of has nothing to do with it. It turns out that you should be changing these filters about every 3 to 4 months, no matter how much water you're using. And the idea makes sense, and I didn't even think about it, but you have your filtration system sitting outside. It is obviously in a dark environment. These canisters are closed up, no sun's getting in there, so it is a dark, wet, warm environment. And when you have a dark, wet, warm environment, you're going to grow bacteria, and that's what's going to grow on your filters. So that's why you should actually be changing these out about 3 to 4 months, whether you're using a lot of water or you're hardly using any water. Now here's the thing, that'll still vary, and obviously like right now it's colder out, so maybe it'll last a little bit longer. It's not as warm, the filters, it's not sitting out in the hot sun heating up. But for the most part, that's why they kind of recommend changing them out 3 to 4 months. I mean, let's be honest, these aren't exactly the cheapest filters. But, when you want that high quality filtration, that 0.2 micron filtration, you want to pay for a high quality filter, and you still want to change it out so you make sure it's doing its job. What's the point of filtering the water if you're just going to leave this in there for a year with bacteria growing on it? So, yeah, sometimes you have to spend the money to change these filters out and make sure you're insuring yourself with the highest quality of, water if you're going to be drinking it that you can. And now here's a little tip that maybe some of you can try depending on your style of RVing. But I was speaking to somebody at the Blu Technology booth that works with Blu Technology, and to prolong the life of their filters, they were actually putting their filtration system in a refrigerator when not in use. I thought that was pretty cool. Now let's be honest, we don't all have room in our refrigerators to go put in our filtration systems, even though this one from Blu Technology is pretty small and convenient. So if you do have, say, an extra refrigerator out in the garage or something like that, you could totally do that. Because you have to think, just like the filters in your refrigerator, how often do we change those out? Well, not too often, right? That's because it's in a cool environment. So if you were to store this in your refrigerator with the filters in them in the water, it's actually going to prolong the life of these a lot longer. Now, another sign that you may need to change your filters out, maybe even before 3 or 4 months, depending on where you're RVing, if your flow rate is drastically dropping down. If you've noticed that the pressure inside your RV when you go to turn on your faucets is really not as good as it used to be, it's probably one thing, and that is probably you need to change your filters. Some parts of the country, just the water is, I don't want to say nasty, but it just has a lot of sediment and sand and buildup and minerals. And once these get a little bit clogged, it's really going to affect the flow rate of your faucets. I know for us, when we first started RVing like 6 years ago, and it was our first year, I noticed my water pressure was reducing drastically inside. I had no idea why. I was trying to figure it out. And the last thing I thought about was the filter, and I went into the wet bay and pulled out my 10-inch filter, and the thing was just completely red and brown from all the stuff that built up. put a new filter in, and boom, just like that, we had great water pressure again. So so if you're not changing these out every 3-4 months just due to like bacteria and keeping up with it like that, you definitely want to change it out for just, you know, flow rate reasons. If you are noticing that the flow rate is pretty bad even before the 3 or 4 months time comes around, you may just want to change out like maybe just the first stage of the filtration system, if anything, to keep that flow rate working nice. So guys, this is just a quick tip. You know, this isn't a, they don't just do 3 or 4 months out of the blue to keep making money from you guys, to keep ordering new filters and things like that. Hey, if you want to extend them a little bit longer, I'm sure it's fine, depending, again, the part of the country you're in and things like that. But, they have these standards set up for a reason. And I think a lot of people really just didn't realize that or ever think about it. I know I didn't. I never really thought about the filter having to be changed just because of, the environment that it's in on its own. Again, I always thought it was, how much water we were using. So I wanted to answer that question for a lot of my viewers out there. And if you guys are interested in any of the Blu Technology water filtration system softeners, they're awesome hoses and things like that, we will have links down below and a code you can use to save 7% off. So go check it out. As always, guys, appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next week. If not, maybe in a couple weeks when the RV season starts ramping up again.
Sorry.
You okay?
I'm gonna go check my output. This is done.
How about I'll check it, okay? Good job, okay?
Okay.
Got to read later, okay? All right. Okay. I'll probably have to cut that out.
I had bloopers part 2.
What's that?
Bloopers part 2.
Bloopers part 2. Okay. All right.
Yes, yeah.
All right, bud.
Well, maybe not.
I know. Nothing.